Gaps in your CV is one of the most difficult things to explain. Sometimes it's as simple as the fact that you couldn't find a job. Sometimes it's as simple as the fact that you were looking after an elderly relative, or you were very ill yourself. But gaps in your CV does deter the employer, especially if it's not explained. And these are the couple of golden rules you need to do if you've got some serious gaps in your CV. Number one is always explain a gap in your CV. Always put a reason there. Acknowledge it. Embrace it. Tell people why. There's always a good reason why you were out of work in that period of time. I think sometimes we feel or fear that we shouldn't tell a future employer why we were out of work for 4, 5, 6, 12 months. Maybe longer, some people. But I think acknowledging it and giving a real valid reason why you were out of work is better than no reason or no explanation there. Now, the simple answer would be, why can't they just phone me up and ask that question? But you're in a very competitive job market. Why would they, is the answer to that. So what you need to do is give them every reason without fail why they should phone you. And that's why you should always acknowledge a gap in your CV. Number two is don't feel tempted to stretch the date of employment one side and stretch the date the other employment the other side to kind of make that gap a little bit smaller and a little bit kind of, believable, if that's the right word to use. What you need to do is make sure that that gap is realistic, because there's one thing a reference check does today and still legally is allowed to do today, is check your employment dates. So believe that you are going to be checked, because the moment that you are found to be lying is when you don't get that job offer, basically. So don't stretch those kind of make that gap smaller. Don't do it. Now, there's three typical phrases to kind of stay away from. Now, those three typical phrases, I would suggest that you don't just put, I was looking for a job, or I was ill, or I was renovating a mate's house. Try to keep away from just those typical phrases. Go into a little bit more about the why that you were finding it difficult to find a job. Have a nice little explanation on that one. Doesn't need to be longer than a paragraph, just something just enough to intrigue the reader to kind of go, oh, okay, I get that, I understand that, and then picks up the phone. And you can then go into more detail if you need to be, but more than likely most people will just acknowledge it and just go, okay, yeah, I get that. If you were ill, I know it's sensitive, and sometimes you don't really want to go into too much information about being ill, but acknowledge the fact that you were out of work for that period of time because of illness, because you're in hospital, or because the doctor signed you off for a period of time. But the important part there, if you were off ill, that you are fighting fit to come back to work. And I think that is the key to returning to work after an illness, that you are fighting fit. So you can prove that with medical documentation that you're 100% fine. So maybe research that and look into that. That might help you into the future. My favourite one, and number one reason why people are out of work for a period of time, is that they were renovating a house or their mate's house. You won't believe how many times I see and read this on a CV. So what I would suggest, if you have been renovating a house and you have been doing something and you want to prove the evidence of what you're doing as a project on something that was more important than you finding a job, then you need to make sure you reference that. I think the best thing to do here is more than likely go back to point number one, which is I couldn't find work. I was in a world in which I was really struggling to find the right job for me, so I spent my time renovating a mate's house so I could earn some money to pay the bills. Travelling. Now, the younger members of us, or maybe the older members of us, might have taken some time out to go travelling, which is fine, because you're going to go and find yourself. You're going to kind of seek other cultures to learn about the world, and I tell you what, that is the most endearing and enriching thing that someone can do. Just don't put, I went travelling. Tell me where you went. What did you do? What did you learn? What did you find out about yourself? And put that in. It's like a job spec that you did that during that time. People like to read that. People like to hear a little bit about what you've been up to and what you got from that enriching quality. I think the number one golden rule to kind of make sure you stick by is don't lie. Liars get found out very quickly, and especially in some of the sectors that I work within, where it's quite small, people know people, and people will find out very quickly the reasons why you were out of work for a period of time. But that said, sometimes the truth can be hard to tell, so try to keep the truth as simplistic and focused upon the reason why you were out of work for that period of time. And I think that's the key to this, really, is be honest, be upfront, and that shows an endearing quality to any future employers about yourself and your character as well. Lastly, I guess most, if not all, managers will ask you about long periods of gaps in your CV, and some of them are going to be really hard to explain, especially if you did nothing in that time. And I think that's the key here. If you do perceive you're going to start looking like your gap in your CV, your employment, your career is going to start suffering because you've gone 3, 4, 5 months, then you need to start thinking about what it is you're doing right and what it is you're doing wrong about your kind of job search, if that's what you're actively doing, or about your career and what you want to do about it. So maybe start thinking about putting yourself on some courses, keep yourself active, keep your mind active, keep yourself relevant into the marketplace. Even if it means that you might have to borrow some money to put yourself on something serious, but make sure that you do something with your time when you're not in work, because that shows a better quality of person and reflective actually of a quality of person to future employers, because that's what they want to see. They don't want to see someone sitting on their ass watching Jeremy Kyle all day. What they want to see is someone that is trying their damnedest to get back into employment, whatever that looks like. Why not check out thomaslee.co.uk for the latest jobs in engineering and technical sales across the UK? Or even, how about you check out our blogs and vlogs for the latest thoughts about recruitment and tips on how to find a job and how to find candidates as well.